Chris Wiggin is with me here today, and Chris moved to York as a student in 2004 and has lived in the city ever since. He has been an elected officer of USU and stood as a parliamentary candidate for the Liberal Democrats in 2010. He's previously worked retail management and is currently working in political campaigns. Chris lists his key political ambition as the abolition of tuition fees and has a keen interest in the use of internet and social media campaigning in politics. Chris is the Liberal Democrat candidate for the Heslington ward, which includes most of the students who live on campus, and there's about 3,000 student electors in that ward. And the Yorker is delighted to be speaking to him. Hello, Chris.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
No, we're very glad to have you indeed. Chris, do you think that these local elections are important for students?
Absolutely. For students living on campus, which is the ones who I hope to be representing, it's important for determining who will be running the council services they will be using for the next 2 or 3 years while they're living elsewhere in York. So actually it does make a massive difference who they elect. We're expecting a very close fight across the city, and so each vote will make a massive difference.
And of course, for a lot of these students, though, they won't be living in Heslington in about 9 weeks' time. What issues do you think they should be voting on, bearing that in mind?
Well, as I said before, you need to look at the bigger picture across the city. The City Council is responsible for many services students will be using when they're living off campus, including waste disposal, road and footpaths, things like that, and also the building of the new swimming pool, which the Lib Dem Council has been able to secure at the new campus, which will benefit everyone across the city.
Do you think that the Liberal Democrat Council in York has provided benefits for students in the last 8 years?
Absolutely. The benefits from a Lib Dem Council for 8 years in York for everyone, including students. These include the decrease in the crime rate of nearly half in the time the Liberal Democrats have been in power. The recycling rate nearly quadrupling, which has meant that the council has more money to invest in other services because the amount paid in landfill tax is less. The Liberal Democrats have invested £18 million, or as I say invested, have led an investment programme of £18 million in swimming pools across the city, which everyone will benefit from. It's been a great time to be in York as a Liberal Democrat, and I hope that the student population will give us a chance to continue our good work.
And moving on slightly from that, then, do you think that the last year, where Liberal Democrats have been in government, do you think they've in government nationally? Do you think that they've provided policies that have been good for students?
Certainly, there are some things that have been very good for students, such as the increasing of the threshold for paying income tax. So it's will have the effect that students working particularly part-time to help fund their studies and then full-time when they leave being less income. There are other things which do affect students, such as tuition fees, which won't affect current students but will affect future students that couldn't have been left as they were. I can understand why some people disagree. I completely disagree with a rise in tuition fees. I understand completely why actions had to be taken. The country was left in a complete mess by the last Labour government, who tried to spend every pound we had, whether or not they had it to spend, and left the higher education sector with a complete shortfall. And most of the universities that have said they're going to charge higher fees have said that they've been forced to to make up the money that they'll be missing.
And with that in mind, do you think the University of York should be charging £9,000 fees?
Personally, I don't think anyone should be charging £9,000 fees, but I can't see any reason why the University of York, as one of the leading universities in the country, won't be. When you see the likes of the top universities, Oxford, Cambridge and other universities charging 9,000 fees, York is very close to that bracket of universities. And when you see the likes of York St John and Leeds Met, which are newer institutions which aren't quite as high at the academic league tables, charging 8,500, then York has nowhere to go really, other than 9.
And but interestingly, as a councillor for the area, then will you be lobbying the university to keep its fees lower than £9,000?
Obviously, the university will have already made up its mind. The application for applying for the higher fees has already passed. What I will be able to do is lobby to ensure that if they do charge the higher fees, that they stick to their access agreement, which have to be in place to allow them to charge the higher fees, to make sure they're giving students from less well-off backgrounds a fair chance to get into York and fair chance to their studies while they're here.
And do you understand why there's anger at the Liberal Democrats over this matter?
I can understand why there is anger, and to an extent I agree, because as has been said before, ideologically I am opposed to tuition fees. I would rather education was free for all, but there is still a price for that. The education, if it's going to be free for those using it, it still has to be paid for. So at the moment, the economic situation dictates that we can't have zero tuition fees. We're paying £120 million a day just in debt interest. So it's no wonder that there are a lot of things we can't afford at the moment. I'd like in the future, and it's still Liberal Democrat policy, that we want to see tuition fees scrapped. And I hope we will one day be in a position to do that.
Okay, and moving on to a slightly different tack, one of the things the Students' Union has recently attacked the council about has been on the council's housing policy, restricting the construction of student houses near the university. Do you support that policy?
Well, what you're referring to is that the council has applied for an Article 4 designation across the City of York Council area. What this means is that any change of use from a family house to a house of multiple occupancy, which is defined as 3 or more individuals not from the same family living together, will require planning permission. Now, this does not amount to a ban on new student houses. In most areas, planning permission is likely to be given. There are some streets that do have a rather high percentage of student houses, and there is a need to get a balance between the needs of students who are wanting to live close to the university, particularly in areas such as along Hull Road and along Lawrence Street and Heslington Road, which I live just off Lawrence Street, so I know what these issues are as I speak to local residents regularly. It's all about getting balance between the students' needs and the needs of the people who live locally, many of whom have lived here since before the university was founded. So it's about getting a balance. And to say that there's going to be a ban on student properties being built is just not true. that it is about striking a balance between the local community and trying to get everyone together and to make living in York a much better experience than it already is.
Do you therefore reject the allegation by the Students' Union that this will be detrimental for students?
Yes, because what it will lead to is what it will lead to is preventing the situation like you have in Leeds, where 90% of some roads in the Headingley area are student houses. Or what that leads to is areas where, for parts of the year where students aren't there, a lot of properties being empty, thus leading to an increase in criminals know that there's no one there. If you have a balance between family accommodation and student accommodation, then that risk of crime is reduced.
Okay, and now moving on to a slightly different tact. What do you think? The Liberal Democrats have held Heslington, I believe, for 8 years. Do you think that you will be able to hold the seat despite the student anger over fees?
I'm confident that I will be able to hold the seat. The thing to remember about Heslington as a ward is it's made up of two parts. There's the two university campuses now, and then there's the village of Heslington, which predates the university, is about 400 houses. And I believe that I have shown in the village that I have what it takes to be a hard-working councillor. I've already been working hard with local residents. For instance, I campaigned hard on the issue of car parking along University Road, which was blocking buses, lorries, all sorts of other traffic from getting through because of the car parking. And pressure that I put on the council has led to double yellow lines being put in. If I can do that before I'm elected, imagine what I can do when I am in a position of power and will have more influence over what is happening.
And we're getting to the end of this interview, but one of the other things I've noticed is that the Liberal Democrat candidate currently for the Liberal Democrat councillor for Heslington has recently resigned from the Liberal Democrats. Can you assure the electorate you won't do the same if elected?
He hasn't resigned from the Liberal Democrats. He just resigned the group whip, which is not saying he's still committed Liberal Democrat, and I'd be working closely with him. I have absolutely no plans to leave the Liberal Democrats at all.
Okay,